You see, the beauty about real estate is you learn to use debt to get rich. I'll give you another tip. If you're going to be rich, you have to learn to use debt. It's called other people's money. So when I hear poor people say to me, I don't have any money, I said, because you're an idiot. That's why. You're not supposed to use your money. You're supposed to use other people's money. But that's debt. I don't want to do that. And so they stay poor.
So I was super confused out of university. I barely got, to school. My parents never graduated from college. So, I got there through sports. And when I first got out, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I ended up, while I was a senior in college, managing an apartment building. And, the guy's like, hey, free rent. I go, in, you know what I mean? So literally that's how I started. So I got on site and I was managing, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I grew up doing a lot of construction, so I knew how to fix stuff. And I also knew that people needed to pay rent. If they didn't, they needed to be out. So property management is not that difficult, but there's a lot to it. And so that was my very first experience around real estate. And so from there, I was managing a 60-unit building, and I remember like about 2 months into it, the owner drives up in his new Mercedes, and he comes in, really awesome guy. And he's like, hey, thank you for increasing the occupancy and cleaning this place up. And, and I already knew how much money I had, increased for him. And I just really was like, wow, well, I'm on the wrong side of the desk here, how do I get on that side? Seriously, I had no clue. Mm-hmm. I was about ready to graduate, and so I got my real estate license, went to work for a company in Seattle, which is where I'm from, and worked for them for 10 years and learned. I managed about 20,000 apartments up and down the western United States after I got my real estate license, and that was an incredible experience. And so at some point, I just decided, okay, I need to start owning these, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started small, like I think a lot of people should. I started with a single home, and then duplex, fourplex, 8 units. Now we have about 10,000 apartments, valued right around $1 billion. So it's just been crazy. 250 employees. We build them, we buy them, we renovate them. We have our own property management company. So it's been quite a journey. It's been awesome. It's been a great industry for me. I've been living passive income my whole life.
And I said, what do I have to do? And that's when my rich dad said to me, he says, you have to take a course in real estate. I said, real estate, why? He says, well, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. I said, yeah, but aren't you going to teach me? He says, I don't have time to teach idiots. No, I want you to hear, rich dad really believed in education, but he didn't want to teach me. He says, that's not my job. Your job is to be a student, then I'll teach you. So I signed up for a 3-day course. I was watching television in Honolulu, and I was still in the Marine Corps, and this ad came on about learn how to invest in real estate. Money, no money down. You don't need any money. I said, that's what I want to do. So I took the course, and it was exactly as Rich Dad said to do. You see, the beauty about real estate is you learn to use debt to get rich. I'll give you another tip. If you're going to be rich, you have to learn to use debt. It's called other people's money. So when I hear poor people say to me, I don't have any money, I said, because you're an idiot. That's why. You're not supposed to use your money. You're supposed to use other people's money. But that's debt. I don't want to do that. And so they stay poor. So I did this course. So the instructor then gave with about 30 of us in the class. He says, all of you, this is your assignment. This is when you get your education. You will look at 100 properties in 90 days and write it up. So I would go to the real estate offices and I say, what kind of properties you got? I look through it. Then I went out, I might in a week, I might look at maybe 6, 7, sometimes 10. And then I had to write a report on each one. So I go out next week, and then by the time I was into probably, of the 90 days, I was into 30 days, half the class had quit. That's the reason they're poor. They couldn't stick it out for 90 days. So I continued on. By the 60 days, the other half had quit of the class. Not half, but half of the half. And finally, it came down to the final days. There was like 6 of us final left. And all of us went on to become multimillionaires. And what we did is we just stuck it out. We just kept going, looking at properties. We're saying, this is what we're looking for, da-da-da-da-da. And of course, realtors, they're real estate broker. You know why they're called broker? Because they're a broker than you are. You know what I mean? And you try to take investment advice from those guys. Same as stock broker. If they were rich, they wouldn't be broke. Think about it. So anyway, I'm over there doing the deals, and finally I get through the 100 properties in 90 days. And then, and only then, did I know which property to buy.
Listen, people invest money with people that understand financial education. Trust me. I started with no money. Robert started with no money. All my friends started with no money. Some of us have been bankrupt. Some of us have lost businesses. There's been all kinds of things that happen. And it just is the way it is. But if you have financial knowledge, then that's when people invest. They invest in you. So I'll give you an example. I bought there was a piece of land that came across my desk like, I don't know, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
It was a residential piece on a major road in town, but it had a billboard right in the middle of it. And so everybody was looking at that, trying to build it and develop it. It had been on the market for, I don't know, almost 6 months. I was looking at the billboard. So I call up somebody I don't know anything about. I'm like, hey, is this a good location for a billboard? He's like, oh my God, yes. I go, what kind of revenues? He goes, we could probably do $2,000 to $3,000 a side. Well, the whole year that billboard had produced $5,000 for one whole year, okay? But everybody's looking at it for something. So I bought it. I paid $290,000 for the thing, for the property. I hired this guy. Now I've got $4,000 a month coming in on this billboard, $2,000 a side. I put an easement around it, and then I sold the land. Okay, so I just created $50,000 in passive income. I have no investment. That's financial knowledge. That's what I'm talking about. You don't need money to make money. Now maybe you don't have the $290,000, but that's okay. That's when you go to an investor and you say, hey, give me $290.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my idea. I already met with a billboard guy, right? It's a plan. And then they're going to give you the money like that. You don't need money. And then maybe you split the deal with them 50-50. Maybe you make $2,000 a month. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it's knowledge. It's absolutely knowledge. It's the same way with real estate, apartments or commercial office. I bought a commercial office building, right on Scottsdale Road. I paid like hardly anything for it because it was vacant. The rents were 50% under market. 3 years later, I've increased it 150%. Literally financial knowledge, and you don't have to be the person that does it all. Well, I think you got to take a look at what a crash does, first of all. So what happens during a crash? People move to rentals.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened in the last one. So that's a good thing if you're buying rentals. But if you're buying them too high, it's not a good thing, right? So I met with a guy yesterday. He's from Mexico, and they're doing a bunch of stuff in Argentina and Spain, and they bought some property in Old Town Scottsdale.
Wow. Oh,
He paid $3 million an acre. I was like, oh my gosh! And I started putting the math together, and I said, dude, you're not going to make any money. Like your rents have to be over $3,000 a month, and that's just not what the market supports. And so it's math. All of it's math. The land plus the buildings plus the rent. You know what I mean? And so if you understand, you have experience, and you can kind of ask those questions, it all starts to make a lot of sense. It really does. And so there are tons of good deals out there. I personally think the it's the most exciting time for millennials to start businesses. You know, and so while it's great to have investment properties and all those kinds of things, it is a timing thing. And so, but there's no time better to start businesses.
Yeah.
You know, you can do it on your phone with an app, and I mean, you know, you can be anywhere you want. You can be in Thailand and run a company in the U.S. It's awesome time. You guys are really coming up through incredible time.
Yeah.
You look at the last crash; it was 12 years ago, right? So, I mean, you know, nobody was really investing then. So, there are still deals to be had. Trust me, we're still doing stuff. They're a lot harder to find. You have to be a lot more experienced to know what to look for. But the right time to buy is definitely after a crash. You know, you want to, when there's blood in the water. The problem with that time frame, though, I will let you know, is everybody's freaking out. So the banks are freaking out, and everybody's freaking out. So there's no money. You know, even investors are, why would you buy now? Like, so it's the opposite. You know, everybody's waiting for a crash. But trust me, I bought during crashes, and there's not a lot of money flowing around. People are like, oof, I'm going to hold what I got and, you know, kind of live through this. So there's psychological barriers on both ends, right? On when it's high and when it's low.
Yeah.
Well, so real estate is a timing thing. So, you know, you have to get everything set up. So what I mean by that is you have to have your capital together, your debt, your equity, your property management, and all those kinds of things set up. But then you don't want to buy just like anything when things are high, you know. So, you know, you buy low, sell high. Exactly right. So, you know, I bought a lot of stuff in, you know, 06 to about, you know, 2012. And, you know, and we paid, you know, great prices for all that stuff. And I don't know if we're at the top, but it's close enough for me. And we've made enough on our properties that we decided to, you know, take some chips off the table, if you will. And as my buddy said, it's like, you know, you never go broke by making a profit. So, you know what I mean? So, you know, some people really try to time things. Nothing wrong with that, but you know, we're the signs to me look like the cycle might be peaking, and so we just decided to sell. Yeah, kept our golden goose, kept the rest. Now, I say that kind of tongue in cheek. What you wanna, if you're going to invest your money, in my opinion, you need to understand who you're investing it with. And you need to understand the questions that you're asking. I think that's the biggest problem with the financial services and the wealth management people. You know what I mean? They just scoop people's 401ks and they scoop people's retirement money and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But those people don't even know what they're invested in. They just get their quarterly statements and, you know, they either went up or they went down, right? And then they meet with them once a year. It's ridiculous, really. And so you got to take you have to be very active on your own investments. Period. And you have to understand it. So if you're going to invest with a guy like me, you have to be able to ask all those great questions. And, you know, so your viewers here, you know, they're going to have more knowledge than somebody that isn't watching. You know what I mean? And so really important. Yeah. So once you're like super pumped about a market, like, you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of great things happening all over this country. I mean, you know, big stuff's going on. So once you kind of identified, okay, this is happening, then you start getting into the economics around it. So, for example, is there a housing shortage? You know, there may or may not be, right? So if there is, then that's the opportunity. Okay, we're going to really go hard down on that. You know, I own a bunch of self-storage units, for example. You know, when we look at where we're going to put a self-storage, we obviously want to put them where others aren't, right? You don't want to be across the street and down the road. You don't want 6 options on one main road, right? It's pretty common sense, right? But you go 5 miles this way or 10 miles this way, it might be an amazing spot. Same submarket. You know what I mean? Same thing with office buildings, which we own, or same thing with apartments. So you got to kind of take a look at that, and then from there, if we're trying to buy something, it's just math. You know, rents minus income or rents minus expenses equal NOI, you know, net operating income. And I have that in the book.
Yeah.
And if that is super positive and you put your debt on afterwards and there's cash flow, it's a go. So for me, it's always cash flow based. If I'm going to put 10 grand down or 100 grand down or $1 million down, it doesn't really matter. I always look at what's the property going to produce for me or my investor, because it all boils down to return every single time. So it's just math at that point.